Okay. Um, Welcome. We're live. Everybody turn around, wave at the folk watching. Welcome to TNT. As I was saying, when your daughter fuss at you, that's different. You feel like a different kind of obligation. You know, sometimes you want to say, I'm the parent. But she grown now, so I guess. Those arguments don't really hold no water no more. When you got kids over 30, you can't be like, I'm the parent. You the parent when they need something. It's, they grown until they need something. You can always tell when your kids need something. And then my daughter, when she's starting the conversation off with daddy, I'm in trouble. Whenever she starts with daddy, I know something coming down the pipeline. Everybody's doing well. Let me tell you something. Let me just say this. We are not, because we're only going to do this in 3 weeks, and I'm going to tell you why. Disappointed, but it's okay. This week, I'm going to try to pull 3 chapters in one conversation. And then next week, we'll end it. Because the Tuesday after that, we're going to be in Egypt. And the next 2 Tuesdays, actually, after that. And then when we come back after that, we got our spring revival in March that you'll start seeing the advertisement for the Tuesdays in March. March 10th, 17th, and 24th. So we have on the 10th, Reverend Janiqua, who's coming back. She ain't preaching all the time. I can't remember. I think the 17th is Danielle Brown from last year. And then Maria Crompton. Yeah. So that'll be in. And I'm putting together, getting some confirmations on the Morehouse in Manhattan in May. That should be good again. So, but this book, the very first time I picked this book up and read it was in college, and it was, in my mind, revolutionary. And I've always wanted, as someone at that time who aspired to be a writer as well, I always wanted to write a book that was timeless. And my inspiration was this book. When I was writing the first book, initially they wanted the book to be 250 pages. I was like, absolutely not. Don't nobody read them books no more. Nobody read 250-page books no more. I said, plus 2 of my favorite authors had not written a book past 120 pages. That was Howard Thurman and James Baldwin. So why am I going to write 250 pages? I read one person talking about this book said that this is a mountain of a book. And if you've been reading, because I know some of y'all are trying to read in the last minute. Please, you gotta make a deal with me. Please read this entire book. Because like I said, I'm trying to cram some stuff in tonight, but I'm gonna do it in a way that I think can be really helpful. But please, this book is a weapon against the forces that are at work now. Because those same forces are always at work, really. What Thurman is responding to, you would have thought he's speaking to this moment right now. That's the timeless nature of this book and the timeless nature of systemic sin and evil. The scriptures say that there's nothing new under the sun. It isn't. And if there's nothing new under the sun, why in the world won't we just sit and learn? Why as I said on that time a few Sundays ago, why every new malignant Caesar that arises, we feel we started from scratch? We've seen these things before, and the problem is we don't seek to learn and capitalize on what we've learned from before. But this book, Thurman was not, you never saw Thurman really in no protest. You never saw Thurman marching. You never saw him like that. But In that generation, every quote unquote activist or religious or theologian had this book. He was the inspiration to a lot of people who were part of the civil rights movement. His teachings, and not this is just one book, he has a lot of books, but his teachings framed a lot of how you approach the principalities and powers in some very sophisticated and very nuanced ways. This again, timeless. And the second book that I'm working on is highly inspired by this book. My quest was to create a kind of Jesus and a disinherited for this moment, which is not an easy task at all because this book is so good. When you have someone who's written something like this, it's hard to step out of admiration. It's still hard for me to critique Howard Thurman. I've done it, but it's a book that has been so foundational in my theological development. And Thurman's language is so embedded in my language, you know, phrases like actualizing your potential. It's a Thurman phrase. Like, I mean, there's so many phrases from Thurman that have become part of my language and vocabulary. It's crazy. But the most profound influence on me theologically, other than Jesus, is this man right here. And then after this man would probably be Shelby Spong, Bishop Spong, probably. After that, theologically, that is. And then socially, culturally, because they do the same thing, Baldwin, Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison is just, gosh, I could listen to her talk all day. Like, and just her brilliance and her courage as a writer, tenacity, just unbelievable. So, there's a white sister I love, Joan Didion. You ever get a hold of some of her books? Amazing writer. So anyway, well, what I'm going to do tonight is challenging. I'm going to, in a matter of little over 90 minutes, I'm going to talk about fear, deception, and hate, which is a Herculean task, but I'm up to it. So, who's here for the first time? Let me see my victims. Look, she went like, wait, victim. But put them up. First time, don't be ashamed. I ain't gonna mess with you. There you go. God bless you. If you're here for the first time, you can't say nothing. I'm just joking. I'm joking. So we're gonna approach tonight differently. All right? We're gonna start, because I ain't gonna get caught in the trap. See, the trap be just start talking, y'all ask questions. That's the trap. Y'all be trapping me. I ain't gonna get to trap me tonight. Nope. That's the trap right there. And so what I'm going to do is start with the notes and then go back into teaching, right? So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to start with the notes. Now, I'm going to say this one rule, but y'all going to be listening to my one rule. Don't turn over the paper until everybody, you know. Here you go. Let me get somebody over here. You got no, you be on, no, you go on that side. Come on, Mary, you get on this side, in the center. Right here. Yep. Mary got the center, Tanae, you stay over there, Just deal with them folk. Mary. And when you finish, you come back and help. Yep. All right. Maybe you take them tests back in the day. Teach like, okay, everyone turn over the test. And if you was one of them people who didn't really study, you'd be like, oh my God. I know I've told this story, but we got a lot of new people. One of the greatest signs to me of the grace of God that I encountered in grad school was my first semester. And my first semester was hard. And not because of the work, it's because I was trying to juggle, whole family and 2 part-time jobs and full-time grad student. It was wearing me out. I wasn't sleeping. And so I had to make some decisions. They were just, all the reading wasn't going to get done. In them days, it's different now in grad school, but in them days, you probably were supposed to average about 500 to 700 pages of reading a week. And with all those things, there was just no way. So you had to decide, you had to come up with a strategy of how to study, how to read. Well, my Old Testament class, I've told this story years ago, but my Old Testament class, on the first day of class, was just a sign that this was hard. That's it. I don't think anybody over here needed it. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Go ahead and flex. Flex. So, the first day of Old Testament, the professor gave us the syllabus. And on the syllabus were the questions for the midterm and the final. This is the first day of class. Now, in the back, we need some photographs. Matter of fact, who's back there? Fatima, you back there? Keep some copies back there, Fatima, in case some new folk come. Here. Couple of copies in case some people come. Y'all gave out all your copies? Oh, you got some. When on the first day of class, the professor give you the questions for the midterm and the final, yeah, that ain't easy. That means we in trouble. And then the crazy thing is the midterm. Well, no, let me take that back. The final, because the midterm was a paper. It was a final. Now, on day one, my man says, here are the 4 questions for the final. I'm only asking one. So your grade for the class, because when you in grad, like participation, look, you in grad school. If you don't say nothing, you don't say nothing. But them grades, we only had 2 grades for the whole semester. An exegesis paper, that was 30 pages. And then a final, that was 1 question. So you imagine you in school, and your whole grade for the semester rests on a question and 30-page paper. So the 30-page paper, I think I got like a A- or something, I don't know. Those were the days when the professors wasn't really checking the fonts. That wasn't 12. The fonts was big. You could have read my paper from back there. Right? I could have held it up and you like, let me read that. And so after I got that A-, I was like, all right, well, I could ease up because I got a lot of other stuff to do. So, I was young and me and my friend, we became close friends during first semester. We worked together at Blockbuster and then we're both in div school. And so we decided that the week before, the study period, we decided we're going to try to study all 4 questions in a week. After one day, we realized we had messed up. We was in trouble. And so we went, and what the professor did is put the questions from like the past, some questions on reserve. This is before digital stuff, on reserve in the library, so you can kind of see how other people, not other tests, but you saw the question and how some people answered. But he never put on reserve like an A response. So it was like a B, C response. He was very calculated. So after the first night, and he stayed at my house, I think, for like 2-3 days. After maybe it was the second day, we realized we could not study for all 4 questions this week, because each of them questions was crazy. Each question had like 6 parts. It was crazy. And so we went back to the library to get the practice test, and he and my little smarty-arty butt go, I noticed a little pattern here. The pattern, I will never forget in my life, the pattern of the questions over the years, he had been doing the same 4 questions for like 20 years. Ain't changing. And the pattern was 1, 4, 3, 2, every 4 years. Question 1, 4, 3, 2. I gambled heavy, 1, 4, and we were on number 2 year in my estimation. So man, me and Eric, I wish he was here right now. Me and Eric sat at my house 2 days before the exam. I said, there's no way we could study for all these questions. We got to shoot the shot, bro. I think it's 2. Now, the whole semester riding on this guess, this theory, because if it ain't 2, trouble, because I ain't got nothing for 1, 3, and 4. I said, it's 2. We was going to pray about it, but I was like, this is bogus. I said, you got to go with this too. Man, we up for 2 days. And the night before the test, we didn't even sleep. And then we drove to campus together. As we were driving to campus, the reality of what we had just done hit us. Because if this ain't 2, I'm getting an F. And there's no sense of me sitting in the room because I have nothing for 1, 3, and 4. 0. I might have put my name down. And so now we want to get holy. The reality hit us on the way. The reality hit us on the way. We got to school, and now, like, I felt in my body anxiety like I had never felt before. Because now I'm thinking I'm letting the ancestors down. All the people sacrificing me to get here. And I ain't studied a whole semester the way I should have after I got that A- on the paper. And then I did it in the sense of this. We had to walk past the student lounge, get to the class. I was like, we need to go pray. It's like, bruh, we need to pray. Then, after we prayed, we decided we're going to flip a coin. The coin flip this is real, this is how serious it got. The coin flip is to determine who's walking in. Because we was already a little late. We were so petrified. We was already a little late. Test had already started. The other person going to stand by the door. And if it ain't 2, I'm going right back. and we flipped the coin. I call heads. That joker landed on heads, which meant E was going in first. And I sat right outside the door. I was like, right over here. And E got in there. I'm gonna recreate what he did. Because he was Kojic. E went like this. He said, when I saw him start dancing, I walked right in. I was like, let me get my test. Now, let me tell you, it was 2. And boy, a little tear came out my eye. I was like, God, I bless your name. I was like, thank you, God. I'm telling you, it took me like 10 minutes to start. I was high praise. I was like, oh. Just to show you how intense that one question was, you know, back in the days, the little light blue test books, the blue books, that one question took 7 books. There was no way I was going to fake 1, 3, and 4. Question 2 response, 7 of those light blue books. You hear me? That's how much information we had to remember. That's why it didn't make sense to try to do 4. We had to take the gamble. Boy, I would tell that, Boy, look, I had to follow a pattern. I kept watching. I went through the whole, from the 20 years he put up, 1, 4, 3, 2. 1, 4, 3, 2. I was like, look at 1, 4, 2. This is the year for 2. Boy, if 3 had gone in there, it'd been weeping and gnashing of teeth. And after that test, ended up getting an A in the class. I said, God, I will never do this again. And I didn't. It was horrible. My chest was hurt. It was too much anxiety. But my God, I don't know if it was grace or just being smart. Because, I mean, God gave me the brain to figure it out. I don't know if it was grace. I don't know if God was invested in my Old Testament final. But There was some weeping when it was a 3-hour exam. When I saw this dude walk out after an hour, I said, oh, he done failed. He was dead. He was dead. No, I already knew it. There's no way you could walk out in an hour from that test. He just like, he gave up the ghost. He was like, I can't do it. But me and E, boy, got A's, and we came through. We was troopers. And I think mine was 7 books. Other people did 4 or 5 books. I OD'd because I studied for one question for like 3 days. So I had all the nuances, all the answers. I was seeming super smart. Man, look. All right, here we go. Now, if you read the book, you'll understand. If you didn't, hopefully this is clear. And then I was serious. I got my little teaching notes tonight because I ain't gonna let y'all get me like last week and have me in here going into Wednesday. Jesus and the disinherited, fear, deception, and hatred. Huh? What's up? So, what y'all saying? What that mean? Why don't you pray? Come on, stand up and pray. Let's go get the mic. No, I don't want to hear none of that. Don't be. I want to hear. Go ahead and get the mic. Come on, lead us tonight. Go ahead. That was good. Go ahead, Mary.
Help me, Father. Okay.
Take your time.
Thank you, God. Thank you for this day, Lord God, that no one can give us, but that no one can take away. Lord God, I ask that this lesson tonight be receptive. Somebody said short. And that we learn and we get something out of it. Life is short, and this life is so can be so. I'm just lost for words right now. I'm just lost, but God, just give me the words, Lord God. But just to bless everyone that is here, those that is on their way, and that we get a good read out of this and learn from it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I bet you don't talk about no
You ready
prayer no
for me?
more.
I'm not afraid.
I bet you don't say no prayer no more.
No, I'm going to say it.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna
Well,
pray.
I bet she's not going to do it again.
I do it again.
No, you're not. Ain't so easy, is it?
No,
It's easy to ask and talk trash than pray.
You don't want me to do a sermon.
You can't do a sermon. I don't want you. The Lord don't want you.
Tell them one of my
The Lord don't want you.
Hey, you know who he used.
Thank you for praying, man. I appreciate you. Now sit down. Oppression does not begin by taking power. It begins. Now, I'm going to be very slow with this. I want you to really take your time as we go through this because these 3 chapters are at the heart of this book, and I am going to do it a disservice because to try to get it tonight, but I think it'll be clear. Oppression does not begin by taking power. It begins by shaping the inner life. It whispers before it shouts. It settles into the soul before it settles into law. Howard Thurman reminds us that the struggle facing the disinherited is never only external. Systems can limit opportunity, restrict movement, and deny dignity, but their deepest ambition is to convince people that limitation is normal, that silence is wisdom, and that shrinking is survival. This is why the first weapon is always fear. Fear teaches people to lower their expectations of life. Fear teaches people to edit their truth before speaking it. Fear convinces people that safety is more important than calling. And yet, into a world shaped by fear, Jesus speaks a simple but revolutionary command: do not be afraid. Not because danger is absent, but because fear cannot be allowed to decide who we become. A fearful life may survive, but it rarely becomes what it was created to be. But fear is only the beginning. Pause for a second. Let that sit in for a second, because fear, well, let me read my friend Thurman for a second. because the opening line of that chapter is one that has lived in my soul since I read it. If you look at my book, this is my first book. Look at all this stuff. See that? My book's like ink. Somebody with a bunch of ink just threw it on the page. Fear is one of the persistent hounds of hell that dog the footsteps of the poor, the dispossessed, the disinherited. There's nothing new or recent about fear. It is doubtless as old as the life of man on the planet. Fears are of many kinds. Fear of objects, fear of people, fear of the future, fear of nature, fear of the unknown, fear of old age, fear of disease, and fear of life itself. Then there is fear which has to do with aspects of experience and detailed states of mind. Our homes, institutions, prisons, churches are crowded with people who are hounded by day and harrowed by night because of some fear that lurks ready to spring into action as soon as one is alone, or as soon as the lights go out, or as soon as one's social defenses are temporarily removed. Fear. I'm going to come back to that. Fear seeks to kill possibility within the human soul. You want to get that? Fear seeks to kill possibility in the human soul. But fear is only the beginning. When people live long enough under pressure, they learn another strategy: deception. If you read that chapter, I think it is the wicked chapter in here. Because at first, Thurman got you thinking, oh yeah, this we had to do to survive. Then it becomes, oh yeah, we lost ourselves. Right? Here it is. Not always intentional deception, but the quiet performance required to move safely through difficult spaces. Highlight that. Deception that is the quiet performance required to move safely through difficult spaces. African Americans in this country, not only in slavery, but after slavery, in the black codes, segregation, had to learn deception. You know, for those of a certain age, they would call it the yassa bossing, where you played a role. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You despised it, but you had to play the role. You had to pretend as though you liked this system so that the system would not kill you on the spot. And the deceptions we had to engage in to survive the nights or survive the days were powerful, because you had to teach your children how to survive. Imagine you teaching your child at a particular time, don't ever lift your head up from looking on the ground before they accuse you of staring somebody in the eyes and try to kill you. These are the things you had to teach children. Grown men had to accept being called boy, and grown women, grandmothers, had to accept being called girl or gal. And they had to act like they liked it, because that would have meant death to resist it for many. If you went with us, and I'm planning on taking another trip there, not just for men, but the congregation as a whole, I think. You know where I'm going? You know where I'm going? Where? Okay. So Betty was like, thank you. Like, you a prophet? We're going to go, I'm going to try to set it up in the fall maybe, because we have the Ghana trip in the February, March again. Ooh, I let it out the bag. But to the Lynching Museum in Montgomery, if you've never been. The men went there in 2020. Who went to that trip? Who's been there in Montgomery to the museum? Oh, a lot of y'all ain't been. Oh gosh. It was one of the most emotional experiences, and I've gone 3 times. And there's a point, I don't want to give it away, but there's a point when you make your way through the actual memorial, not the museum, because there's a museum and a memorial. Those who went with us, I broke into 2 days, because the first time I went, I did them both in the same day. It was too much. To go to the memorial and the museum in 1 day was too much. So we broke it into 2 days when the men went. And you go through these, if you ever seen the pictures of these bronze symbols of representing bodies, and they're hanging. And so the way it's designed, that when you walk, as you walk around through all of them, the ground goes down. You walk down. And the more you walk into it, it gives you the sensation like those bronze that represent the bodies, is lifting up, being lynched. So as you walk, they raise up above you. Not because they're moving, because you're going down. So it gives you that sensation. And then when you get to a certain part of the thing, you have placards that kind of tell why certain people. So those things that you see hanging represent different people in different parts of the South. In this county, 35 people were lynched. And sometimes on those plaques, they have the names of the families. So you have, like, on one night, a husband, wife, yes, and all the 3 children were lynched. Like, that kind of stuff was happening. And there was one incident, this is one placard that I can never forget. I think my son saw, he got emotional. A woman, they lynched her after they lynched her husband because she was crying too loud. So deception is survival. But Thurman, and you would read this and say, yeah, we had to learn that. But Thurman says there's a problem with deception, right? This is the brilliance of this man. Let me read this. People learn which parts of themselves are acceptable and which parts must remain hidden. They discover how to adjust their voice, soften their convictions, and reshape their identity so that they can exist without attracting punishment. Over time, performance becomes habit, and habit begins to blur the memory of who we really are. Survival begins to cost us ourselves, and then there is hatred, the most understandable temptation and the most dangerous one. Let me pause again. This is why this moment is problematic culturally and socially. We have normalized hatred in this culture right now, and we don't understand the damage. That's why I said what I said on Sunday before I preached. Guard your peace. Be a steward of your peace, because that constant diet of anger, and anger leads to hatred. Once it leads to hatred, they have won, and you are the loser, period. All right? Hatred feels powerful because it answers pain with intensity. It promises emotional release and the illusion of control. But hatred has a hidden cost. It binds the wounded person to the very forces that wounded them. Underline that, please. It binds the wounded person to the very forces that wounded them. When you begin to hate, you begin to mimic the one who did the damage. All right? It keeps the heart chained to injustice, even while the body is trying to escape it. This is why Jesus' teachings about love is not sentimental instruction, it is spiritual strategy. Love, in this sense, is not approval of injustice and not the absence of resistance. Love is the refusal to allow oppression to define the condition of one's soul. Right? It is a determination to fight without becoming what we are fighting against. I feel like the determination to fight without becoming what we are fighting against. Right? It is hard to constantly say, I hate this person, because you will slowly become that person. All right? Fear says shrink. Deception says pretend. Hatred says become hardened. But the way of Jesus says something different. Be courageous enough to live truthfully. God. Be courageous enough to live truthfully. Be honest enough to live without masks. Be whole enough to resist without surrendering your humanity. Now, pause for a second. If you've been here any amount of time hearing me preach, you can hear the influence this man has had on my preaching. It is clear on my theology, everything, right? The question before us is not whether fear, deception, or anger will appear in our lives, because they will. The real question is whether we will allow them to take residence in our spirits. Because the deepest freedom Jesus offers is not only freedom from systems that bind us, it is freedom from the inner captivity that those systems try to create. And perhaps that is the invitation of this moment, to struggle with courage, to live with integrity, and to guard the soul so fiercely that even in the middle of injustice, we remain fully human. Because it takes a lot to be fully human, but it takes so little to lose it. Some slight or infraction, and suddenly you move from being offended to being the victimizer. It diminishes fear, deception, and hate. They diminish you. They diminish you. So when Jesus talks about love, it's not because we're trying to have a kumbaya moment. Love saves the human soul from being destroyed by the forces the human soul is fighting against. So when he says love your enemies, it ain't because Jesus invested in going to Caesar's house and have dinner. He's invested in you not losing who you are. This is what the ancestors understood. This is what they understood. You see, what people don't get is that to survive that, how do I say this right? Let me get it right. Ian Laverne. To go through every day the dark night of the soul, every day, and still create songs? To still find a reason to sing? Or to still find a reason to have children? I don't care what you tell me. Bodies captive, but something in the spirit refused to give in. Can you imagine every day of your life under the threat of lash or death, and you find a reason while you're working from sunup to sundown to sing a song? What? That is one of the most miraculous things you can imagine. That comes from a different place. That don't come from a place because you got a good melody and you like harmony. That comes from a place because you value life. You see? That powerful line in the scriptures, when they said when they went in Babylonian captivity, those who held us kept required of us a song. In the famous line, how can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Nah, the ancestors said, how can we not sing that song in this strange land? Because the song and the creation of the sound was the only thing that connected us to the continent. Hearing that drum and making that music, and it was what connected us. Because even when they strategically put us in a position where we couldn't understand one another, we still felt the same movement, the same rhythm. We still respond to the same sound, so that music became a universal way for us to make sense of life, right? Because oppression, let me read that first line again. Oppression does not begin by taking power. It begins by shaping the inner life. Oppression is not when you hold me captive. Oppression is when I accept your definition of me. When I accept what you say about me. That's when oppression takes root. And when I accept the conditions established by the one who seeks to kill me, I have died before death showed up. So part of the reason So when I'm very mindful of what I say from this pulpit, because well, on some levels, people, you want to talk about Trump or you want to talk about situation? Yeah, I got to guard my peace. Because here's the real question. Hold on, is Dawn here still? Tell Dawn to turn on this fan before we all end up in hell. Good God. I'm like, threw me off. I was on a roll too. I felt sweat trickling down my back. I was like, good Lord. I was like, what's this? I got all these clothes on. I'm like, right. Woo. All right. So let me get my notes tonight. So here's the question. What happens to the inner life of people who must struggle to survive? And how does Jesus protect the soul in the midst of that struggle? Right? Howard Thurman teaches that oppression is never only external. Systems may control bodies, but they seek ultimately to control one's life, your imagination, your identity, and the emotional center that you try to hold on to. Fear, deception, and hatred become the psychological and spiritual tools through which domination sustains itself. Jesus speaks directly to these forces, not simply to change society. This is the part you got to get, but to ensure that oppressed people do not lose themselves while fighting for freedom. See, people don't get this. In the midst of all that you see on social media, all that you see, all the anger, the frustration, everybody posting this theory, everybody posting this, and can you believe this, and all going back to race. Here's the question: who's casting an alternative vision for the future? Or are we just constantly regurgitating the anger that is destroying our soul? Jesus is not spending his time every day talking about Caesar. He is not spending his time talking about the weapons of the system that are destroying his people. He spends his time casting an alternative vision, showing another way, and engaging in the most radical form of healing that you can. And that is when you're committed to healing people's spirits who've been broken. Because that way, Caesar is in power. But through what Jesus is doing, power and control are different things. You may have power over me, but you ain't going to control my mind. You ain't going to control my mind. Right? So, somebody commented today on the radio show I was on, and, they said President Obama in the past has just been really congratulating the athletes and stuff on social media for the Olympics and whatnot. And the person calling said, we should all take a lesson from President Obama. Ignore insanity. He ain't round up. See, if you put an image of me looking like a gorilla or ape, how is that going to bother me? That says a lot about you. The only way it's going to bother me is if I ain't clear about who I am. A lack of clarity is how the enemy arouses my emotion. But when I'm clear, you got to work hard to get under my skin. Right? And so every time something happens that you think is offensive and you feel you got to react, you have no discipline. I don't know any way to say it. When you feel that every time somebody says something to you, you got, I ain't going to let no. So you have zero discipline. Every time somebody says something, you got to react. You have zero discipline. You can't be that thin-skinned because you don't realize that every time you react, you're lessening yourself. That's why if any one of you was actually on Mindfulness Monday, and let me see the hands who was on Mindfulness Monday. All 7 of y'all? No, it's a bunch of us. The pause, I said, Pause for your peace. Because this culture tells us that we got to react, respond now, say something now, post something now, put a video up now. Pause before you react. Come on, Betty. Yeah, yeah. You got to use it all the time because there will always be a temptation. Well, not just get back. Yeah, get back, right? That's true language. That's good language. But getting back is also another phrase for losing yourself. Get back for what? Let me tell you something. If you came to me and cursed me out, Mary, now let me be clear. You could talk now. I'm gonna be clear now. I've been the Lord. I'm in the old school church. He's saying, "There's an old school church saying no. Here's an old school church saying, I'm saved, but I ain't delivered yet." You could do all this. Hang on. Now, if you try to harm me or my family, that's a different ball game. But this right here, they just were. You don't know enough about me to offend me. You don't got enough tools in your reserve about me to offend me. That's why when folk was saying, like they was asking me on Sunday, some of the media team came to me, because I don't know, some of y'all may have seen it, but there was a post on TikTok. People, and somebody probably disintentionally thought they were trying to hurt me, but God bless them. But there was a post on TikTok, somebody named Pastor Mike Key. His last name was Key, who was somehow wilding out on his spouse or whatever. And somebody's like, oh, I know who that is. And they put a post of one of my videos saying that was me. Now, the person's last name was Key, and they were in Texas. So the media team was like, do you want us to put out something? For what? That ain't me. Why would I defend myself against something that ain't even me? Or somebody felt that they might try to put my image up there or try to hurt me. I don't care. But that's not me. And if I put up something against it, I have just drawn attention to it. If you won't believe that's me, well, God bless you. I ain't walking around trying to convince you. I know me. Right? But in this age, everybody wants some juice. Especially all these little scandals of clergy popping up. Everybody want to try to find the next good, juicy scandal. Oh, I got it. Get out of here. Right? When you're clear about yourself, you can't, watch this, you can't give over the reins to your spirit so easily. Because somebody, well, you know what, but Pastor, she said, so? I tell leaders here at the church, deacons, when they were going through training, ministers, and if y'all remember that, I said, remember this. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, you will always be deacon so-and-so. You will always be minister so-and-so. You will always be pastor so-and-so. Right? There's never a moment when you're not that. So don't forget that. There's never a moment when you're not that. And you do not know the people who know you. And folk a little slick. You go into a place and sitting there and they watching you carrying on, you and your friends acting crazy. And then when you're on your way out, they be like, hey, Deacon Sharon. They waited till you cut up and everything. And then on the way out, hey, Deacon Sharon, FCBC. He was like, and then you walk out there and was like, oh my God. But you got to think that you're never not that. You're never not that. I was in LA on Friday. I went to a movie. You know, I still a little cautious. I was like, had my hoodie on my head, you know. And I was standing before it's this new experience. It's this place in LA. If you ever go to LA or Dallas, anybody from Dallas here? No, LA? Okay. Well, all right, well, hey. There's a place called Cosm, C-O-S-M. If you ever go to Dallas or LA, you go to Cosm. Cosm is a theater, but it's called a shared reality immersive experience. I went there because the movie they were showing was one of my favorite movies of all time. They don't show no new movies, they show old movies. Because they had 2 movies showing. Y'all know what the movies were? One, my favorite movie. Come on, say it, Mary. Matrix. Because the theater screen is like a dome from here all over. So you like in the movie looking like, oh, snap. Like you're in the movie. That's how it feels. And the other movie they were showing was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But the original one with Gene Wilder from 71. So I'm sitting there, have my hoodie on, a little low profile. Here. Come here, E. Come here. This is exactly what happened. E is me. Big old, and I had a big hoodie too. Like you couldn't see my face, I thought. So I'm standing right here in line waiting. Here comes the person walking. No, come over here, because you gotta get it. I gotta have to walk. So I'm standing there, face down, and this person gonna walk in this way. Pastor Mike. I was like, yeah. What you doing here? I was like, we got FCBC out here. Oh, I did hear about that, but you ain't been. He's like, I used to go to one in New York. Oh, well, we here. But I was like, man, because you're never not. You're never not. Right? So it is with you, no matter what. You're always who you are. You show up, but you can't let people get the reins like that over your life. And that's what the Jesus movement is. The reason why following Jesus is difficult is because it requires a sacrifice. And the sacrifice is to sacrifice the you had to create to survive. Especially you're a New Yorker. The mentality you had to develop to survive some things, Jesus says, okay, you can call me, but you got to let that person go. That's when discipleship gets tough. You mean the person I had to become to protect myself on the street so people didn't take advantage of me so I could survive this craziness? Yes, that person. Because that person is the deceptive you. That's who you had to create to come through some things. But you and your survival techniques are not synonymous. All right, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Fear is the first weapon. It's the first weapon. Fear is the foundation of domination. When people are afraid, and let me help you. So I'm talking about this race, all this stuff. No. When people are afraid of losing their jobs, afraid of losing their reputation, afraid of their safety, afraid of losing their belonging, they begin to shrink their expectations of life because fear trains people, watch this, to settle for survival instead of freedom. So fear does. That's why Thurman opens up. Fear is one of the persistent hounds of hell that dog the footsteps of the oppressed, the disinherited, the disadvantaged. Fear makes you make survival your normal state of being. If you're constantly in survival mode, when does freedom come in? When do you experience freedom? Because then you think freedom is the absence of the chaos that makes me need to survive. No, that ain't it. Fear creates that in us. And again, it's not just fear of some enemy. It's fear of these things, fear of losing things. Henry Nouwen said, if you had a bird in your hand, a little bitty canary, right, and you claim you love someone, he said, hold them like you would hold that little bird. You hold it too tight, you'll kill it. And then you'll say, but if I hold it too loose, it'll fly away. Now it said, let it fly away, because if it's real love, it'll come back. So you don't hold on to it for dear life because you're afraid of losing it and still call it love. That's not love. That means you've allowed your fear to create domination and control in your life. You understand? Because real love allows you to fly. In fact, real love will remind you you got wings. That's what real love will do. Real love will seek to empower. Real love will seek to fill the void so that the real you don't escape. Well, I hope y'all getting this because I'm feeling it tonight. See what time it is. See, that's why Jesus' love in that regard is not diminishing. It is not limiting. It does not hold you captive. It is not trying to remake you in an image that the other person created. Love does not control. Love does not manipulate. Come on, Paul. Love beareth all things, believeth all things, hopes for all things. That's what love does. Fear is the opposite of that. Right? Relationally, fear makes you say, where you going? Have you ever experienced that? Where you going? Who you going with? That ain't love. The instigator to that is fear. Right? If I'm so afraid of losing you that I become somebody else, that ain't love. That's fear. If I see you moving ahead and doing well in life, and now all of a sudden this jealous monster creeps in and this competitive monster creeps in, that ain't love. It's fear. Because fear celebrates. Rather, love celebrates. Fear hinders. Love shines light. Fear makes shadows. All right. Fear is the first weapon of the enemy. The playbook ain't changed. Huh? You put ice on the street and people afraid of coming outside, afraid of showing up to places, for fear of being taken. That's why the first weapon of oppression is to create systems of fear. And if I do the fear enough, think about it. Because I had this conversation with Minister King the other day, and we were talking about 9/11, right? And how I wasn't here in New York at the time, how deep it was. And when you hear the stories of, it's an intentional strategy. It's as old as slavery in this country. Look, it wasn't but a handful of them dudes on the plane. But here it is. I'm going to take this little box cutter, and I'm going to run up on Betty and slash her throat in front of everybody. All of a sudden, everybody's stuck because you bore witness to the gore and the blood. And the first thing you think is, I don't want that to be me. One person or 4 people with 4 box cutters and 200 people on the plane. And fear will grip you and you can't even move. That's the strategy. To make people comply. It's old, it ain't new. So in slavery times, here it is, you got a woman who was pregnant and disobedient and did something outlandish, you're going to punish her. We ain't going to punish her. We're going to destroy her. We're going to mutilate her. We're going to sit there in front of her. We're going to kill her, but we ain't just going to kill her. Because killing her ain't inflicting the fear. We're going to slice that stomach, pull that baby out, bash that little baby against the tree, and then dare any of y'all to get out of line again. That ain't a makeup story. That's a real story. Fear. It's the first weapon of oppression and domination. To create fear enough in you to immobilize you and then get you to comply with the insanity of the system that's seeking to destroy you for fear. Right? Courage looks different, but fear. So here's what you got to remember. Fear does not control what people do. Fear begins to shape who people believe they are allowed to become. It's like, I had a conversation with my cousins today on Zoom. We were talking about family dynamics and stuff. And it's like, if sometimes fear is generational, fear is handed down. Fear has other names: cautious, right? Careful. So here you are on this end. You have the capacity to move from here to that curtain. That's your range. You got the ability to go from here and go all the way to that gold curtain right there, right? But here's what fear says. I know you can do it, but you know what? You might be okay just going right here. Right? Because, I mean, here, you know, but there is a little dangerous. And things might not work out. And stuff might fall apart. And you might get hurt. And pretty soon, that word of caution, fear, being careful, being tentative, makes you believe that your whole possibility is between here and here. And then when you accept it and internalize it, you start believing that your terrain of engagement is right here when the possibility is all the way there. But now here you are here, and you decide, watch this, look at this move. It's going to describe some of our lives. It's going to be painful too ahead of time. So here you go, boom, this is your whole life. Moving within this realm right here. You navigate everything. You found marriage, you found relationships, you got married, you had children, you got a job, all that right here. Right here. You retired, you got your retirement, all that. And all this, you said, I lived a great life. Yeah, you might have, but here's the problem. It was a safe life too. And it was a life that didn't push you. And you were afraid to push yourself because somebody said, this is the space that you operate. When all this is out here to you and you accepted it. And here's the problem. Here's the problem. Come here, Randy. Come on. Yep, come on. Here's the problem. Ready for the problem? Yeah, come on, you two, let's go. Right? All right. Tell everybody your name.
Kelly.
Day.
Randy. Okay, here it is. Kelly, Day, and Randy. Now, these are my 3 children. What do you think I tell them? The problem is, I'm so enabled by fear. Here's my possibility. Come here, Randy. I tell Randy, don't go here. Because now what fear does is try to control the engagement of offspring. Because you feel you're doing them a service because I don't want them to dare go beyond where I am because I don't want them to experience all the evil that's out there waiting. So now I'm cutting short their possibility, shorter than mine. So now, whereas I was working in here to here, Randy worked from there to right here. And I'm going to give this the first child. Well, then the other 2 are going to get more limited and more limited. And it takes something almost cataclysmic to break that. So now I am passing down my fear, not by telling my children to be afraid. I'm passing down my fear by telling them there's a narrow space of possibility. And I'm raising them that same way. Thank y'all. That's what happens because of fear. And then some of us become the children of that fear, and we have children raised in that fear. The thing is that then you get to a point in the journey, usually around that 50-ish or 55 or so, or 60 range, maybe a little bit earlier, right? And all of a sudden one day, you done lived your life, you done maxed out to right here. Watch this. You done maxed out here, and here was chill. But then one day, you was at an event, and you met Ellis. Another day, you was at another event, you met Deshaun, and then you met Desiree, and then you met Laverne. The problem is the reason they became a problem is because now you have met people who you're looking at your fear. Look where they at. And now, in addition to fear, now bitterness starts to come in. But now you're like, how they get there? Then it goes from how you get there to now watch the internalization. I'll never be able to do what they did. Now time creeps in. I say, I guess this is just my lot. And then you start accepting. When images of possibility are right here. And then, watch this. Watch this. Now, me and Ellis, and me and Deshaun, and me and Dez, and me and Laverne are all friends, but they don't understand why I act funny sometimes when they talk about some good things that are happening. They don't understand why I can't always celebrate all the way, and when my celebration don't look quite authentic. Because being their friends constantly reminds me of what fear did to me. You hear me? So now, whereas these are 4 people who could have actually connected me to resources that could have expanded my possibility, I never get to the resources because fear can give birth to this little child called jealousy. So now, instead of the 4 being inspiration, they become problematic for me. So now, all of a sudden, Ellis, Deshaun, Desiree, and Laverne, now they all friends. We all friends. And then watch how it starts. Then one day Laverne says to Des, when the last time you seen Mike? Then Des in a conversation to Sean. Yo, you heard from Mike? And then Deshaun has a conversation with Ellis. E, you saw Mike lately? Nah. And then E says, let me give Mike a call. And I am over here. And E calling me. And he like, man, Mike, what's going on? Oh, man, I'm just chilling. I'm just, You good? No, I'm good. You just dealing with some things. Now, I'm so fearful of being found out that now I distance myself from possibility. Yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Get the mic so people can hear. Okay, good. It should be emotional. This is tough.
Pastor,
You fine? No, I'd rather be that.
Pastor, you is keep blowing my mind because it's like you in my window, like you on the block, you're around the area what I'm exposing to. This is what I'm going through, and I thank you for. I'm getting emotional because people, if they see that you still have drive and desire, no matter how much life knocked you down, they sometimes try to make it seem like you're the problem, and that is what I've been going through for a while because I never wanted to settle. I always saw more, want more. So I'm in a group where I thought I was in a good group of females, and most of them, some is family, and they always want to do safe. And I always opened the possibility of where Auntie Laverne is at. And instead of them wanting to try, they tried to feel that I was the problem or I'm doing too much.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
that's it.
Okay, stay right there with me. Here's why 40 years ago, this right here that I just described 40 years ago, I would have simply faded away. They would have went on their life, and I'd have sat here sharing. And because remember, I'm trying to survive. And survival says, don't be around them because the more you're around them, the worse you feel. So survival does. So now you're going to protect self-preservation. I got to preserve my spirit, my emotion, my mind. Because when I go around these folk, I'm reminded of what an underachiever I am. Right? 40 years ago, I could have crawled back into my little hole and sit here and be like, whatever. But now, whereas 40 years ago was Ellis, Deshaun, Desiree, and Laverne, now I'm looking at the whole world moving forward. Not realize that some of what I'm looking at ain't even real. But now, what would have been something I could ignore, now I've gone into deep depression. Because I'm constantly looking at other people who seemingly have passed me by.
Or they're being actually mean. You know, I've shared with you a good news, right? And I've kept it to myself because the people closest to me, remember when you said during the war, you go,
Yeah.
and there you feel out of place because you limitate yourself. Well, I'm so excited to share that news, and it hurts more when it comes from family. And I was like, oh, I gotta tell you something. And it's the news I told you. You was more happy than my family. All my friends are my close friends. And when I told them, I'm thinking they're gonna say, nah, look at God, I'm happy. You know what they said? Oh, that's it? Oh, I thought something happened. Oh, that's it? That broke me, Pastor. But I still didn't let it stop me because I knew what God was doing for me, because I always saw and wanted the things that's happening.
Yeah.
Even though life lifed me,
Yeah.
I still never gave up of what I'm going to do.
Yeah. You know what? You know what?
What?
Let me say this if you learned a hard lesson on. Right? Everybody don't deserve your good news. Period. See, what happens is because you're worried, fear has you worried about how people going to respond when they find out you're elevating. You get quiet. You ain't got to get quiet. Find the right people to tell. Don't get quiet. What you now know is who you can't tell stuff to. Period. And then people you can. I am not going to live my life and let somebody else give me the blues because they can't handle my breakthrough. I'm going to tell some other people who know how to celebrate. I'm under no obligation. Watch this. We may share the same blood, but not the same emotion. I ain't got to tell you nothing. Yeah, go ahead.
Just in response to that, to encourage you, sometimes relatives are not family.
Oh, God.
Secondly, like Pastor said...
Turn that volume. Is anybody up there down a little bit?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just like Pastor said, other people's definition of you doesn't matter. On the same token, you shouldn't look for their confirmation to matter either.
Right. Good. Let me leave you with this one. We're going to end, but on this fear part, because I'm determined to get through this tonight. And it is this. Why is this thing? Can y'all lower this? Okay. That's no. That's so here's what I want you to think about as we move to deception. Where has fear? Where has fear shaped the decisions you made in your life? That's a hard one. It's a tough one, right? You can't overcome what you don't confront. You can't overcome what you don't confront. See, people. Yeah, but hold on. Yes, but that confronting, it's like confront, pause, because we often want to get to the resolution without getting to the issue. See, it is hard work. Yeah, now, doing a courageous act is one thing. I ain't talking about like the army thing, being courageous in spite of. I'm talking about deeply embedded fear that is such a part of your reality that you don't even recognize the moves in your life that fear has been making because you've surrendered to it. Yeah. No. I'm talking about surrendered to fear. Yeah, and what I'm saying, that's fine. That's fine. But the key is when you face fear and confront fear, don't, like most of us, when we get to uncomfortable places, we just trying to get past it. No, you got to sit in that confrontation because the fear is birthed from a place that is not, Thurman said, it is not an external place. It is internal. So the origin of it, in order to get to it, it is steeped in confrontation with yourself. And most people don't just do that. Most folks don't just confront my habits and my behavior that is steeped in fear. The reason why you created all these coping mechanisms because you were trying to run from the trauma anyway. Right? So you're going to ask yourself, how has fear impacted the decisions I made in my life? And watch this. Here's the one, before you leave in there, you got to get this one. Okay, ready? Okay. What possibilities have you abandoned because you were worried about consequences? That's the one. What possibilities have you abandoned because fear had you looking at the consequences and not the possibility? If you face an opportunity and the first thing you're thinking is, well, what if it don't work? Know this, fear got a grip on you. Got a hard grip. Because if your first thought is consequences, but not possibility, fear controls the show. And it's hard to break free from that. Right? Especially when you go back to my example, you live cautiously and carefully. Because you know what the cautious and care in life really is saying? You want to manage. Why you want to manage? Because you want to control. Why you want to control? Because chaos has been unkind to you. And you're trying to manage your life. Right? That's why, the scene of Jesus and Peter and Andrew and James and John out on that lake, when them fish came jumping in that boat, is the most powerful scene to me in Scripture. Well, let me not say, I always say about every Scripture, but it's one of the most powerful scenes in the pause. Yes, ma'am. It's on. Why are you getting there? Because in that moment, Peter, Andrew, James, and John fought with fear. And they defeated fear. It doesn't mean that they were perfect. They defeated fear that day. Why? Because the cautious, careful life would have been, and this is why the call to surrender and sacrifice doesn't come on the heels of hell. Uh-oh. If the call to sacrifice came on the heels of hell, right? It won't be challenging. Like you catch in hell and somebody say, okay, listen, I want you to sacrifice this and come try something different. I mean, you've been catching hell all your life and you like, fine, because like you said, like it can't be no worse than what I done seen, so let me try it. The call to surrender and sacrifice come on the heels of breakthrough, of good stuff. And the call says, can you give up this now? Especially, here it is. This goes to Andrew, Peter, James, and John. This goes to Abraham. Can you give this thing up that you finally got, that you were waiting for a long time? Can you walk away from it? When Jesus said, follow me, it came on the heels of the most successful fishing day of their life. They ain't never had boats about to tip over. They ain't never, all this was all computing into money and taking care of their family. We good. We can live a life now for a moment without fear and all that. And Jesus said, it wasn't just follow me, walk away from the wealth. Walk away from the fish. Walk away from the folk who are dependent on you to catch some fish to survive. And then he hit him with this ambiguous thing. And I'll make you fishers of men. Yeah. Oh, what? Boy, so much I can say. Yes, my sister. Tell us your name.
Sorry.
That's
My
all right.
name is Vakila.
Okay.
So I work with children, and me and my friend here was just talking about this yesterday. We realized that the children are no longer dreaming, no longer shooting for the stars. They don't have this big, we're asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, think of whatever you want to do. And they're shooting so low. The expectation is so low. And we were just figuring out, how do we get them to dream bigger? So this message is really hitting us. And when you speak about fear, I wrote a lot of notes, so thank you, because I think that we could use this on our messaging to talk to them and try to get them to think of other ways. But my question to you was, I think as we all sit here as an adult, we could be able to understand this or relate to it, but how do you get a child to recognize that they are fearful? Because I don't think that they know that fear is stopping them. So what are your suggestions on how to relay that message? Because they might say, I'm not scared, I just don't know, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know while I'm not dreaming big. So I just wanted to know what was your feedback on how do we relay this message to our young people, because they are, like you said, they will miss opportunities because they're just going in their comfort zone and they're not going on to the other side.
You have to keep constantly, and I'm using this word preach, but not in the sense of being a preacher. You have to keep preaching possibility and telling them and showing them. You got to keep giving it to them. You can't stop. You can't stop. You got to be relentless. Part of the reason is because it's not just the kids who are suffering, it's us as adults too. We're not as relentless as it used to be when it comes to our kids. I had a fourth grade teacher, the greatest teacher in my life, and this is a woman who was relentless with pouring into us. Never stopped, because this is a woman who grew up in the Jim Crow South of Alabama, and she saw firsthand the destructive nature of oppression and racism. And she had all these little babies in her classroom. She refused. She kept pushing us and telling us what we could be, remind us who we are. Don't let nobody, she never stopped. She never stopped. She never stopped. Right? This is why Jesus kept repeating the same things to the same people. Never stopped. Because you are countering and fighting, whether they realize it or not, the habits that fear built. And if fear created habits, then you have to be habitual with your attack. And the attack is not to be like, stop being afraid. It is to push before them possibilities. This cultural moment, young people suffer from nihilism, big time. The vanquishing of hope and possibility. I mean, this has happened over the past 10 years in many ways. And remember what they've seen, too. Remember what this generation has seen. And that generation from like 2008 with the Great Recession. And some of these kids in this country, they saw parents lose their homes and parents lose their jobs. And they went from living in this nice house to this small apartment. And then dad didn't have a job. They saw all these things. And then the part of it is that they've seen these things. They've heard these narratives. And some of the people who they saw them lose were people who did everything right. Went to school, got the education, got the job, and it didn't work. So now what do you tell them to do when they've seen people do this route and sitting out there and still ain't got a job? So it is having to reframe this moment and reimagine what possibility looks like. All right? I'm going to take this, real quick, and Mary, hold on, because I just want to get to this sheet. Go ahead, brother. No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead, you. Turn it on, Rand. You turn it on? Oh, it's not off. It's off. There you go.
Thank you. So I've been listening to you, and can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So I was actually, as you talk, I was thinking about, there's a scene in I Am Not Your Negro by Baldwin, where he's asked what happened to the civil rights movement, and he says the integration to capitalism, right? And I remember asking my grandmother, because my grandmother was she was one of the folks who protested in St. Augustine when they desegregated the pool.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked her, like, what happened? And she's like, I got a house, I couldn't be out there protesting anymore. And so I oftentimes say that, like, the civil rights movement wasn't finished, but we got to a place of comfort. And I've always struggled with my participation in capitalism, and how your sermon about Caesar actually helped me a lot, because I try my best to avoid it, but this is Caesar's system.
Yeah.
And I think the fear of losing Caesar's coins keeps us in the political climate that we're in.
Well, see, here's the thing. Because Caesar's coins be paying the bills, but Jesus had an answer for this. See, this is why I say I'm a real Jesus freak, but not in this crazy sense, because I really understand. I think I understand what Jesus was really trying to do. The older I get, the more I read and study, I'm like, there's a genius here that's amazing. It's like Thurman, right? One line Jesus would respond to you with, right? And tell me your name, brother. Ahmed. He would say, Brother Ahmed, Here's all I can say to you. These are Caesar's coins. It's a Caesar system. We in Caesar's system. Like if you want to engage and survive, because that's how all consuming the system is. You can't avoid it. Right? That's Jesus will honor. Jesus will honor it. Like, but here, man, here's what you got to do. Be in it, but don't be of it. Be in it, but don't let it define you. Because I might need Caesar's coins, but I don't need the things that Caesar dangles in front of me that say, you want to be a better person? Buy this. See, it's tough, but you don't have to be of it. Jesus can avoid it. They had to pay taxes. They had to, they had to do all the things we had to do. But it doesn't have to define who you are, right? So this Jesus guy was something else. Because how you, as an oppressed Palestinian Jew, how do you speak words of transcendence and transformation to people like you from within the brokenness? This is masterful, right? Because he is not letting Caesar, I'm going to keep using this reference, define him, and he's casting another vision. That's why I said, we may be angry in this cultural moment, we visionless. Who's casting the larger vision? You may come here on a Sunday and you catch it, but consistently. Because then, watch this. Let me show you how it is. I'm telling you what real people I know right now, preachers too. So I say something, Betty, from the pulpit about Trump, right? Say I say something about Trump. And then it goes viral. If I am of this foolishness, now I'm trying to recreate another Trump moment because I want to go viral again. Because then I got more followers. And then all of a sudden I'm trying to define myself by the followers I get. So I'm Trump every week. Because I'm trying to find the next thing that's going to go viral, then raise my followers, my profile. When you're doing that, you don't even realize Caesar's system got you. And you think you're doing it in the name of justice. Right? What's the vision you're casting? Again, Jesus does not sit every day talking about Pilate, Herod, or Caesar. Because that would have been a saturation of the obvious. It's like somebody, yet again, proof, Donald Trump is a racist. Okay. How much proof you need? I mean, my God. It'll be something else next week, and then we going crazy online, posting about, oh, did you see what Trump did? And well, he's a racist. It's like somebody is a pathological. Watch this. Let's say Benjamin is a pathological liar. Pathological liar. You don't know what anything coming out of his mouth going to be true, right? Pathological liar, right? Tell everybody your name, brother. Donald. Let's say Donald and Benjamin friends for a long time. They've known each other for 20-something years. And this is your boy, he a pathological liar, right? All right, tell me your name. Shanice. So here come Donald and Shanice, and Benjamin lied again. And here come Donald and Shanice. Can you believe Benjamin? This brother just lie all the time. But you done know him for 20 years. You know he pathological. Why every time he do something, you're like, I can't believe. See then, and Shanice probably be like, listen, brother, I mean, you know who he is. Why is it shocking you? So it's like when people get all riled up over Trump, why are you shocked? If he a liar, the only way you become a liar is to do what? I mean, so when you're, oh my God, you believe the lies he's telling? Yes. He's a liar. That's what he does. And all this energy you feed in to point out the obvious. You put in a post every 5 minutes. You put, he's a liar. Trump's a racist. We know. Dr. Proctor would be like, therefore what? Therefore, what's the therefore? Therefore, because the therefore puts it back on you to say what you going to do. And what you realize, we ain't doing nothing. We're just talking about the obvious. all the time, every day. Got whole conspiracy theories. For what? It does not change the condition of people who suffering and sees a system. You all day talking about how bad Trump is not changing the substantive life of someone that Caesar got their foot on their neck. What are you going to do? I smell something burning. It's like a light, like it could be just the heat, because it smells like light heat. You know when light bulbs are fine. We'll see. Don't worry. Now we done had a fire break out one time when we was in here. No, it wasn't. The thing exploded, the chandelier. But all right. Deception. Then we're gonna get out of here. I'm trying to run us in. Deception. You smell it now? Now that I said it, you smell it, right? It's getting stronger too. Could be something on the radiator. It could be. No, it's not gas. It's something, light fixture, something. We're going to find out in a minute. Something, yes. Look at you fancy. Something was singed. I love it. It said, Mama, I got a degree. I love it. Part 2, deception. It's the cost of safety. Thurman argues that when people live under sustained pressure, they often learn deception. Not simply lying to others, watch this, but editing themselves in order to survive. Editing yourself. Removing parts of yourself. That's where Thurman is genius. Because whereas deception is survival, Thurman says the survival mode is depleting. It lessens you. You become less authentic, right? The oppressed learn what to say, how to act, when to be silent, and which parts of themselves must remain hidden. Here's the problem. Over time, survival performance, get this, becomes identity confusion. You get it? You spend so much time performing to survive, you actually lose who you are. Yes, ma'am. Hold on.
When I read that, I couldn't stop thinking of my peers growing up in Texas.
Yeah. What part of
and
Texas?
In Brownsville,
Oh, yeah.
in the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Mexican. And
Brownsville, state penitentiary there, right?
several.
Several in Brownsville. Yeah,
Different
yeah.
kinds. All
Yeah,
kinds.
yeah, yeah.
And I grew up in Mexico, so I speak perfect Spanish. I communicate with everyone in Spanish. But those of my family and friends who grew up in Texas, they literally lost their language that their parents speak.
Mm-hmm.
So changing your complete identity, even to the point that you're unable to speak to your own family in order to conform, because the fear is so great and that you have to change who you are.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking of that and how it keeps being so persistent in today.
Excellent. That is an excellent example of what happens. As a person of West Indian descent, I've seen it with family members, where that you try to cloak your accent, believing that you'll get further ahead. I've seen some people do all kinds of things to kill their accent for fear of being judged or assumptions being made. And you do it long enough, right? I can talk about someone I know who's from an island, had an accent, but spent so much time cloaking it to fit in that they lost the accent. They don't even sound like where they're from anymore, right? That's a perfect example of what Thurman is saying. What you just gave us is a perfect example. Whereas, because you're trying, it's deceptive. I'm trying to appear a particular way, right? And in appearing a particular way, if I do it enough, it's like I want to live in the copy so much that I lose the original, right? Oh, that's painful, man. And it's painful, as you just said, to watch it. Because what is lost? What traditions are lost? Because when language is lost, It ain't just the loss of language. It is everything connected to the language. Everything, when accent is lost, even the things connected to the accent that are rooted in culture that bring life, right, is gone when that happens. And watch this. When you're not forced to do it, you choose to do it. Oh, that's when Caesar got you. Because Caesar says to be functional and successful in this system, you need to lose what made you an original. Yes, ma'am.
Talking about childhood and how he's also speaking in childhood
Yes.
when he's explaining about fear. How some parents had to do that generations before because it was literally prohibited within the schools.
Yeah.
So that's no longer the case. And obviously we have bilingual schools everywhere. New York does an excellent job on
Yeah.
that. But as generations pass on, you pass on that fear too. And
Yeah.
now there's no longer that need per se of doing it, but you have to continue to do it in order to provide quote unquote a better future to your kids. But you remove that identity, and if you don't construct an identity, you lose hope. And like he said on the book, when there's no hope, there's no ambition.
On. Go back over here. When there's no hope, there's no ambition. No, not to Mike. I was just being said. There's no ambition. That's the issue. When there's no hope, there's no ambition. And so you wonder why the young kids, no ambition, because there's no hope. Right? I love that. I love what you said because for me it's sacred. Like I have cousins, some of my favorite cousins and stuff. When we talk on the phone, we only talk in our patois. No. I'll bust it out when I'm not asked. And it's funny, like whenever I go to Barbados, it's instant. It ain't even intentional. You just slip right into it. You know what I mean? And I love that. I have that. I can root a way of speaking to a place that's connected to my origin. Right? And I love my culture. So I remember years ago going to the museum in Barbados, many years ago, and that's when I found out about the connection to Charleston, South Carolina. And a lot of the words we would say, I found out, I remember being in this museum and got super emotional because I realized that the words we were saying, the phrase we were saying in our patois, that it actually had African origin. A lot of those words were from Swahili. Oh, no, what you call Geechee, that's a Bajan accent. Barbados, yeah. Yeah, Bajan, South Carolina, Charleston in particular, is founded by people from Barbados. So when you hear the Geechee and the Gullah, you'll hear a Bajan twang in there, Bajan accent in there. And they'll think people they sound like they're from the Caribbean, but you got to nail it down. There's a particular island they sound like they're from. Very much so, because you can't shift that. So when you go to South Carolina, you're talking about Gullah, the origin of that is Barbados. And a lot of those words, the way they pronounce, come from Africa. Like, so we would say things like wanna is a word, wanna, right? We'd say wanna. And then I found out my grandma would say wanna, and we say, well, wanna. We say wanna, and I thought that was just some way we taught. It was like a patois. And then I go to Barbados in the museum, it's like 98, and I found out that wanna actually meant the way we use it. Wanna meant all of you. And that's how we used it. All of you. Like everything had an origin. So to have that language, my cousin would call me, and one of my cousins, Karen in particular, and we straight have a whole conversation with this Bajan patois. And it's fun to be around folk who don't know what in the world I'm saying. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? You know? And I'd be like, well, it's English. It's just our English. You know, you hear somebody from Jamaica, Antigua, they sound a particular way. It's there. But the most offensive thing tells my Caribbean, you Jamaican? You think everybody from Caribbean is Jamaican? Everybody's not from Jamaica. You know what I mean? So anyway, so here it is. Thurman argues that when Oh, I'm sorry. Let me read that again. Thurman argues that when people live under sustained pressure, they often learn deception, not simply lying to others, but editing themselves in order to survive. They learn what to say, how to act, when to be silent, and which parts of themselves must remain hidden. Over time, I've read this, but I want to read it again. Survival performance become identity confusion. All right? When survival, here's you got to remember, this is Thurman now. When survival requires pretending, the soul slowly forgets who it really is. Jesus' refusal to accept false labels imposed on him becomes a model for inward freedom. In other words, even when systems try to define you, you are not required to agree with their definition. You are under no obligation to accept what someone says about you. That's what I love about Baldwin. You can't, that's what I am not your Negro. Like you, whatever you define, I'm under no obligation to believe and accept your definition of me. And we keep responding to people's labels of us. When you respond to the labels, you are giving the labels power. Right? But the old adage said, it ain't what people call you, it's what you respond to. You don't define me. Now here's what I give you. Now, let me go back because I want to make sure you get these questions I'm giving to you as prompts. Under fear, remember this question. Where has fear shaped the decisions you made in your life? And what possibilities have you postponed because you were afraid of consequences? Under deception, here's what I want you to do, all right? I want you to fill in the blank for yourself on this one. Ready? Here it is. I learned to be blank in order to be accepted or safe. Just put that down for yourself. Only you can answer that. I learned to be blank in order to be accepted and safe. What did you learn in order to be accepted? What behavior you created in order to be accepted and safe? See, this is why, again, I love Thurman, because Thurman is doing Jesus work. This is real Jesus work. This is taking Jesus and expanding it to this moment. That's why I know you got a whole lot of Christians in this country right now, but ain't a whole lot of people preaching Jesus. I'm telling you right now, they ain't preaching Jesus. Because if they were preaching, it would sound radically different. Jesus' teachings, like Buddha, like Confucius, are empowering, life-giving words. That's where you get all cut up. They ain't saved. They don't know Jesus. Well, maybe, well, here's the thing. Life words, no one group of people or believers have monopoly on life words. On words that give. No one group has a monopoly on words that give life. None. That's why you can be taught by anything. I don't have to accept all things, but I'm always a student to learn something, especially learning things from spaces and places outside of my comfort zone. You know? Everybody want to praise God and shout and carry on in church. Here's the question I be wanting to know sometimes. Okay, if you had to fish for your food every day, if in order to fish you had to risk being bitten by a snake, and if being bitten by a snake meant death, and this was your daily routine, and then you knew every year, some of y'all know where I'm going with this, every season where you live floods, and you got to break down your makeshift home, break it down, and go to higher ground until it passes. Sometimes you don't get out in time, so those snakes inhabit when the flood comes, and they kill your kids, because your kids will lose the slowest and last ones to get out. And every year, this is your cycle. Could you get up and praise in church? You said no because you ain't had to. Because I went there and seen that. I saw folk who we would call hyper impoverished, who had literally nothing that you would consider valuable materialistically, but be willing to give you the shirt off their back, and that's the one shirt they got. And I watched people literally worship and praise God who had zero. I ain't talking about they miss a check. They ain't in the system where they even get a check. Where you walk into their house, they are on the floor, There ain't no beds. There ain't no heat. There ain't no air. There's no nothing. There's sleep. And they, when it came time to worship, they going in. So that their praise of God and work ain't because of what they got. It's because of who God is. And so often we are praising based on what we receive or what we have. But if everything was stripped away, can you still give God glory? If everything was lost, could you still go to church? Or would you sit at home in a deep state of anxiety and depression because you lost everything? Or would you then be like, no, I got to go talk to the Lord and celebrate? Because I have nothing materialistically, but I got up this morning. Or sitting there with a little child who every season you got to cut your daughter's hair to sell to make money for some of y'all to put your extensions in. That's real talk. I watched children, little girls in the village with short hair because they cut it to sell it to get money. So people use that stuff we put. When you hear real hair, where do you think it came from? It's human hair. Somebody had to sell it. But see, we don't see the people who they got the hair from. We even take what has been lost to live as a means of capitalistic access. See, sometimes when you see too much, it's hard to go back. All right? I'm going to read something. Oh, man, I got to hurry up. Fear, deception, hatred. Remember, fear is the first weapon, but hatred is the final trap. Hatred feels powerful because it promises emotional release and psychological revenge. But Thurman warns that hatred ultimately binds the oppressed to the very forces they oppose. It narrows the heart, consumes emotional energy, and keeps people spiritually tethered to the injustice they are fighting. Hatred may feel like strength, but it quietly steals freedom from the inside. Can't let hatred be inside of you. Look at what it's doing to some other folk who hate you. Look at what they go through because of their hate of you. Isn't it crazy to hate people you need? When I read the story of King Saul, I feel for him. Because I don't know what it feels like to hate somebody who also has the key to your healing. David. There was only one person who could play and calm Saul down when them evil spirits took hold of him. Can you imagine despising the key to your healing? It tears you apart, right? If oppression captures your heart, it has captured more than your circumstances. Jesus' teaching about loving enemies is therefore not passive morality. It is a strategy of inner liberation. It protects the soul from becoming spiritually colonized by injustice. You know what colonization? When injustice colonizes your spirit, when you become a tool of the oppression without even realizing it because hatred is determining your moves, you don't even realize that you become a weapon against yourself. That's what hatred does to you. That's what it does to you. Love is an act of resistance in a cruel world. And again, not passive sentimental love, all right? So as we go here, I want you to remember this. These three things, I read it before, but I'm going to say it differently. Fear says, shrink. Deception says, pretend. But I'm going to say it differently than I said it before. Hatred says, become what damaged you. You should hear that. Hatred says, become the thing that wounded you. That's what hate does to you. You become the thing that damaged you. And then hurt, we always say hurt people hurt people. No, hurt people who learn to hate hurt people. Right? Jesus' message to the disinherited is a different call. Be free enough to live without fear. Be honest enough to live without the mask. And be whole enough to resist without hatred. This is not weakness. The way of the carpenter is not weakness. It is the preservation of your soul during your struggle. This is not about weakness. It takes strength to be a disciple in this way. It takes serious strength to not become the thing that damaged you. Right? I want to read this and then we'll leave tonight. I have to find something I wrote one night when we were in, I couldn't sleep. When we were in India. Let me see. I got to find this, man. I got up one night and I surely could not sleep. And, oh, here it is. So this is what I wrote. This is on, I don't even know what day this was. We went to India, in 2017. So it's 2017 when I wrote this. And then we'll close on this. This trip to India has shown me how materialistic I am. And I am ashamed. We don't realize how our addiction to things has robbed us of joy, peace, and happiness. This addiction has made us miserable and petty. We forget what it means to be human when we place supreme value on inanimate objects that don't give life, but those things actually take life. There's nothing more inhumane than devaluing people. What does it say about our humanity when human beings become depreciating assets? What has happened to us? When did we stop seeing one another? We have so much, and yet we share so little. But I've been in the village where people have so little, yet share so much. Orphans sleep on dirt, but they sing and dance and praise God for the joy that is infectious. When they say hallelujah, it was truly the highest praise. Who am I that God would be so mindful of me? I pray that God is not just. I pray that God is merciful. How can hell be worse than what we've become? For we are no longer human. To be human is to be made in the image and likeness of God. Look at the hurt we've created in the world. Look at the poverty we've created. Look at the orphans we've created. We are not human. To be human is to love. We have become the things we love. We have lost our humanity and have become the things we glorify, inanimate objects. Jesus said that where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. If our treasure is in things, and things have no life, then we have no heart. This is why we are unmoved when we see human suffering. We have lost our hearts, and God is hurting. So God, forgive us, for we know not what we do. The wounded heart of God groans for God's children to remember who they are. And sadly, we have lost our way and become lovers of death and enemies of life. God has no desire to punish us. I've learned that. For it is we who punish ourselves. It is we who punish one another. It is we who have scorched the earth. That was in 2017. After coming from a village, I think it was the second or third day. This is what is happening. That's why in the midst of all this stuff we see on TV and all this stuff, think about this for a second. This is not to belittle someone's life. And I don't want to compare, but I just want you to think about the culture we've become. Right? Every day, little black girls and Latino girls disappear without a trace. But the world is captivated right now because the system says this person's life has more value. We glued to the TV. Can't stop talking about it. Savannah Guthrie's mother. And anybody's mother being kidnapped is tragic, but we're saying this life has more value than those lives. Because ain't nobody sitting around the clock talking about little children of color disappearing off the streets. And what we don't know is it's happening more than we think. Nobody's talking about those numbers. No one's talking about the little girls in the South who are being kidnapped and sold into sex trafficking. That don't raise our anger. That's not newsworthy. We ain't round the clock talking about that because those lives don't mean anything. But some celebrity or some person of wealth, something happens and now it becomes a national issue when children are dying every single day, kidnapped every single day in urban communities, and ain't nobody sounding the alarm. And what we are saying is that those lives mean nothing and this life means more. It is tragic, but we are diminishing the value of children, and you will always know what a culture is, how it sees its children. And every day, little black girls are disappearing. Little Latino girls are disappearing off the streets of this country. And there's no tip line on CNN, no call-in line for that. It ain't even making a byline in the paper. Every day, families are devastated. Every day, mothers and fathers are crying, trying to figure out what happened to their children. But this society says, this life means more than that. And if you do not care about the lives of the most vulnerable in our communities disappearing, that means you do not care about the future. That's what is happening right now. And see, nobody wants to say that because, oh gosh, that's sad. So we feel like we got to qualify. Well, I think it's terrible. No, it's horrible. But what's even more horrible is to ignore the cries of children. Nobody want to talk about the children around this world who go to sleep to the lullabies of gunfire every night. That's what's around the world. And then nobody want to talk about that. No one want to talk about the genocide that is rampant around this world. We got folk now looking for somebody with a mask on with a gun in his pants. Googled and found a way to go through software to back end of the camera. But you tell them we can't find a little child? With all these cameras all over the place, children disappearing on the street, we can't? No, it ain't that we can't, we don't care. Because we already have determined whose lives have more value. This is a moment that indicts not just an administration, it indicts a people. It indicts a way of life. It's terrifying. I ain't terrified because no Donald Trump in office. I ain't terrified because nobody in office. There is an expiration date to this. But I'm terrified to how immune we've become to fragile and vulnerable lives being lost. And whereas we tried to racialize and say, oh, they don't care about black folk. Oh, they don't come about black. Oh, they don't care. We saw 2 white people murdered in the middle of the street. So don't think this is just about race. It ain't just about race. This is about a system. And the system them bullets don't discriminate. That's what we seeing. Someone said on the knock end, someone said in the radio call, the question on the radio show, every Tuesday I co-host a radio show with Reverend Sharpton. And the question he asked, there's not a lot of black folks saying we shouldn't care about the deportation of ICE. A bunch of people say we shouldn't care about that. People call them, we shouldn't care about that. We shouldn't be worried about that. But put it to you like this. ICE was here in Harlem. Hold on. Yeah, but hold on now. I just want you to hear. I want you to hear this part. Oh, yeah, it was up there. Where's about 8th Avenue in 116? It was all over here, right? Now, peep this. Peep this. Who in here families, I mean, we all historically, but who in here immediate families from Africa? Anybody? Like immediate family? Okay. Okay. Let me, who raised a hand? Oh, there you go. Tell me your name. Where's your family from? Okay. Hold on. We don't need to rant. We're good. So they're Kenyan and what?
My ex-husband is Kenyan and Saudi Arabian, but
Oh,
he
man.
was a transfer student from Kenya, from a
Okay.
town called Mombasa.
Okay.
And then he got his citizenship, and he's here now.
Mm-hmm. See, when ICE came around this way, because this whole area is called Little Senegal, right? A lot of Senegalese brothers and sisters right here, right? There's a whole lot of Senegalese brothers who look like we could be brothers. If they looking for them, and we look alike, you think they differentiating your blackness? So when you start saying you don't care about ICE and deportation, I'm going to go back to them words, them famous words again. If they come for me tonight, they coming for you in the morning. So you sitting here reducing ICE. ICE, what is happening right now with the racial profiling of our Latino brothers and sisters, what is happening right now is practice. They're seeing how far they can go to break the laws to capture people. And you got the audacity as a black person in this country to think that that has nothing to do with you? They come for me at night. They're going to come for you in the morning. So don't think you safe. That's what the thing that blows my mind away. The idea of this, we start getting into oppression Olympics. I'm more oppressed than you. No, I'm more oppressed than you. No, I'm more oppressed than you. No, my people been no. We comparing oppression. Who's more oppressed? Can you imagine? That's a manifestation of Caesar's system. Got the oppressed competing about who's more oppressed. But they steadily destroying, and we fighting. Can you imagine? We fighting over the crumbs from the table, and we ain't realize, like Jesus, sometimes you got to turn the table over first. We fighting for crumbs. Ain't even thinking about the table. We ain't even thinking about a seat at the table. And the truth is, we shouldn't be thinking about the table or a seat. Not when you got the capacity to build your own table. Can you imagine me trying to get access to a house when I got the capacity to build my own? You understand? Let me show you how idiotic. Kid Rock talking about something. The NFL using Jay-Z is like a DEI hire. No shade to Jay-Z. You idiot. The NFL using Jay-Z is about business. Watch this. And let me tell you why the race card and all this we pull and all these fools over this Super Bowl performance by Bad Bunny, which, by the way, was amazing. It was great. Everything was great. Now, let me tell you the crazy thing about this, right? So, and watch this. I'm going to subtly give this to you, though. There are people who would be shallow and be, oh, well, we didn't understand what they were saying. First of all, music is universal. I got folk in here on Sundays who don't know a lick of what's being said on the stage, but will come down here crying. Crying. Because music is never about words. It's about what has touched the soul. Right? But they're going through all this. You think Roger Goodell did this because he wanted support? No. It's a business move. He wants to expand the reach of the NFL. That means more money, more profit into Latin American countries. That's the move. It's a business move. Jay-Z helping pick the halftime is a business move. Because business always trumps the smoke and mirrors, which is the racism. Even racism was created in the name of business. You had to construct race to justify slavery, which is a free labor market economy. You use race to justify the economic structure. Race is never the issue. It is always the economics. And when you begin to understand that, you stop being distracted by race. We want to talk about race all day. We don't want to talk about class. We don't want to talk about capitalism. Period. And if race is our only calling card, we'll never critique the system because the system thrives off of the oppressed focusing on race. And then we out of here. Yeah, you can say something real quick and we gone. Oh, of course. Yeah. We don't need that. We good. No, it ain't about you. It's about the people listening.
Okay.
We can start getting ready. We leaving after this.
And Paul Mooney was, rest in peace, Paul Mooney. He was talking about the system. And he said, y'all so busy thinking that y'all fighting for y'all people. So it made me think about when you was talking about Black Lives Matter as opposed to All Lives Matter.
Yeah.
He said, you got the blacks against the whites against the blacks, the Spanish. And he said, and what y'all don't realize is that's what the politicians up there want. But you better every race better come together.
Yeah.
He said, because when the politicians come, they're coming for every
Let
one of you, and he's not going to
me
kill you.
clarify that more. It ain't the politicians.
Okay.
Because you're going to see who runs the politicians. Corporate America. Big business runs this country. Big business runs this country. Not corporate, not politicians. Big business runs this country. Politicians are tools. Oh, it is. But notice, politicians are pawns. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it ain't the politicians. It's business. It's business. And those who ask me about Ahmed, that's right. When you talk about civil rights unfinished, it wasn't unfinished. It was not conceived of effectively. Now that could be like a taboo to say that publicly. Ooh, you talking about civil rights movement? Yes. Yes. You know why? It wasn't conceived effectively. Taught the Black Panthers about how they got destroyed. You think about how they got infiltrated. You know why? These were kids. If you look at your 25-year-old self and your 52-year-old self, there's a radical difference. Remember, Martin Luther King was killed at 39 years old. And it was only at the end of his life he saw the flaws in what they were doing in the civil rights movement. And that famous line that Dr. King told friends, he said, I fear that I was trying to integrate my people into a burning house. Or his famous speech at Stanford University, right? Where he says, he begins the shift in his tone. He says, what good is it to fight to sit at a counter and you can't afford the hamburger? He saw what the real issue was. And when he started shifting from civil rights to human rights and economic injustice, because that's the key of this country. It ain't about, as long as you talk about race, yeah, they could say it. But when you start when you got that power to amass that big a following and you change the minds of the people to shift their focus, you're a problem. Malcolm X, the minute you shift from the white man as the devil to the white man as my brother, and I seen white Muslims on his Hajj and his pilgrimage to Mecca, and all of a sudden Malcolm comes back on human rights and economic injustice. Yeah, I mean, you go on and on. This is the thing. It is the crux of this system. It ain't about white versus black. It is that greenback. It's that dollar. That's what drives the system. When you start to critique it, analyze that, you become a threat. I mean, just put it out here so I'm saying it. Ain't no Target boycott gonna do nothing. Let me go differently. Let me go deeper. A boycott on Target ain't the answer. And those are my friends. I know these people. But if you're gonna boycott Target, Target will boycott the high-end luxury garments you're wearing. Because our people don't go into debt because of Target. We go into debt because of the high-end luxury brands. You want to boycott a place you don't even shop at. Boycott Dior and boycott Chanel and boycott Louis Vuitton and boycott Gucci because 60% of Louis Vuitton's income comes from the United States. 60% of LVMH's income, what they make, they sell more bags in the United States than all of Europe. Name all the high-end luxury brands. Boycott that because our folk go into debt trying to think that their value is connected to some high-end brand they got on their back. That's what you boycott. That's what you target. You want to target Walmart in Target? No, boycott what you wearing. Now, I watched during the pandemic when we got those stimulus checks. I was in Atlanta. I went to Phipps Mall in Atlanta. You know that boy, right? I went to Phipps. I'm walking through Phipps because it was like, I want to go to Lennox. Lennox is a little crazy. So I'm walking through Phipps. I watched a line out the Gucci store that covered the entire length of Phipps Mall. And it was us in that line. I ain't seen nobody who ain't looked like us in that line. That's what I saw. Folks got them stimulus checks and they stimulated their closet. You thought the stimulus checks were benevolent? No. You've been trained to think that that water is wetter, then ice is colder, and you took the stimulus and gave it right back to them. That's what was done. You thought that was benevolent? They know our spending habits. They know what attracts us. They know that the money they pumped in is going to go right back into the economy. That's why they gave. And you have fools out here talking, oh, Donald Trump, so you're going to give us some money. We're going to vote for Donald Trump. The money you're going to spend and put right back in it, you didn't take that money and tell them to invest in CDs or money market account. No. You was like, I'm going to go shopping. Telling you, that's what they do. And we keep falling for this foolishness. They dangle this stuff in front of us like, this is what it means to be part of America. You got to look this way, dress the part. You got people renting Bentleys for a night. They're going to take 1,000 pictures of that Bentley and act like it's there. Or getting permission to walk on the tarmac in front of jet to act like it's your jet. Jet ain't yours, the bag is borrowed, the car is rented, and the shoes were given. But we flossing. And we so crazy trying to be like folk, we want to get blinged out. And the folk we trying to be like ain't even wearing real stuff. This is crazy. This is crazy. Oh, no, don't get me started. I ain't got no problem saying that, but it's real. I've said it plenty of times in plenty of ways. I've been consistent with this. It is at the heart of the issue. It is walking in the steps of Jesus in this one. We have been sold a bill of goods that ain't real. It is dehumanizing. It takes us away from one another. In the name of what? The reason why the recession of 2008 took place was because of the fraud, the mortgage fraud. Why did the mortgage fraud work? Because folk want to be blinging out. I said it here before. You qualify for a $225,000 house. That's what you qualify for. Be grateful that you qualify if you want to buy the house. $225,000. But here you went to the bank, and the banker was like, you actually qualify for this $850,000 house. You're like, what? You mean the big joint? So here you go. You was looking at $250. Now all of a sudden you start shifting. The bank told you $850. Now you're like, listen, let's go over to that subdivision that we pass by every day. And you walked in there and you was like, this house was $700,000. You was like, that's less than what they said we can get. So you get the $700,000 house and you buy this $700,000 house. Now let's be clear, you ain't got no furniture. You got a $700,000 house and you going to rent a center. You got a $700,000 house, right? And because you were so anxious to floss, especially you was in the A, right? You were so anxious to flex and floss, you ain't pay attention to that little small little right there when that balloon payment kick in, and all of a sudden you had the house for maybe not even a whole year, maybe a year, and all of a sudden that thing kicked in and you was like, uh-oh. And all of a sudden, you just got furniture in the dining room and the second bedroom. And now you about to lose the whole house. And you about to lose the whole house because this fool convinced you to go for something that was not within your reach financially so that you can give the illusion that you balling. Right? And then when you came back and said, you know what, I think I will take the $150,000 loan. And then he walked away laughing. He said, got him. Got him. You know why? Because the minute you signed that paper, Mary, and you got your loan, and you walked out there smiling, you had a whole housewarming party. You had a registry to get everything because you couldn't afford nothing yourself because everything was locked up in this house you just got. So you wanted everybody to furnish your entire house. Talking about, this is my housewarming. No, you trying to get it filled because you ain't got no more money left. So now here it is. You in there. And the minute you signed that thing to get your check and that loan, you know what they did? The same banker who got you that loan then went to the other side and bought insurance against you. So that when you default, they covered on the default. So they got the house and they got the money back because your butt was greedy because you was busy trying to keep up with the Joneses and be impressive. And then you got mad, and then you walked out talking about the system is rigged. No, you a fool. System ain't rigged. The system is designed for foolish behavior, for nonsensical behavior, for not thinking, because all of a sudden you don't want to live within your means. You wanted to flex a little bit. Can you imagine taking your whole check to get an outfit for one night and then trying to figure out how to pay a bill next week? What kind of thing? That makes no sense. We do it all the time. I watch people, I'm on my soapbox, I'm sorry. I watch preachers sit in the pulpit like this. They, knee hurt. So you can see these red bottoms here. I see people, just on point out, walking all crazy. You walk like, for what? You got a red bottom and an empty top. Man, let's get out of here. Come on, let's stand. I'm sorry. Let's go. That's being facetious. I ain't sorry. Huh? The book? The last chapter. All right. Last chapter. We're going to wrap this up next week. Now, I hope you see what I was doing. Instead of trying to pick every chapter, is weaving through the essence of every chapter on fear, deception, and hate. But those notes should help you navigate. All right? Let's go to God. God, we thank you tonight, and we are so grateful, oh God, for these moments. And God, there are days when what we face seems so overwhelming and so daunting. That's when we learn not to lean on our own understanding, but in all of our ways, all of our thoughts, all of our decisions, acknowledge you, oh God. God, we're in this moment where we sometimes wonder, what's the point? But God, the truth is that's where the enemy wants us to be. Because when we get there, we do nothing. So God, give us the sensibility to move beyond the shallow living and not be afraid to drop our net in the deep water. God, thank you. And then, oh God, once we drop our net in the deep water and you bless us beyond measure, give us the strength to walk away to a higher calling. We love you, God. We honor you, Lord. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, listen, I would love to chat, but please hold your questions, comments. I got to get ready to go get this plane early in the morning. God bless y'all.